Coming up on this Monday edition of Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports, I'm Chase Sr. I'm going to explain how new offensive coordinator Kellen Moore has changed this Philadelphia Eagles offense. Hello, pre-snap motion. It's about time. We'll also break down Jalen Hurts' positive numbers against that Packers blitz, and then we'll do a whip around the NFC East to take a look at how the Cowboys, Commanders, and New York Giants fared on the opening Sunday of the 2024 NFL season. Before we begin, we are closing in on yet another milestone as we make our push toward 100,000 subscribers, and I really want to get that silver plaque from YouTube this season. We're 28 people away from 82,000. So if you're looking for Eagles shows every single day right here on this channel, the go-to destination for all things birds year-round, hit that subscribe button. And if you haven't come across this show before, here's what we bring to the table. All right, let's do it. Hope everybody had a great weekend and your weeks are off to a great start. And I know that the Eagles played on Friday night, but it's still a victory Monday right here on Eagles Now. And it's all made possible thanks to our friends at Roan. Head to roan.com/chatsports if you're looking for great menswear that's comfortable, high quality, that will allow you to look good and feel good like me on this show. Come on now, look at this shirt. Go to roan.com/chatsports. Use the code chatsports for 20% off your order. We'll tell you more about them coming up here in just a little while. So one of the biggest takeaways after this Eagles win over the Green Bay Packers in Week 1, Friday night in Brazil, the Kellen Moore influence. And on today's show, I want to take a look at what he did for Philadelphia, how he helped maximize some of the playmakers on this team, but also how he was able to help Jalen Hurts in a couple of critical areas in which he struggled last year. The Week 1 benefits, pre-snap motion rate. He really helped Jalen Hurts against the blitz because Philadelphia had a lot of answers there when the Packers sent pressure. And I thought that Moore was able to unleash the Eagles' playmakers. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley in a couple of critical moments. Dallas Scudder, one big catch for Grant Calcaterra. So you look at the overall numbers for Hurts against Green Bay. There was some good, there was some bad, there were some pleasant surprises, there was some ugliness in that game. Hurts only completing just shy of 59% of his passes, 278 yards, 2 touchdowns, but 2 interceptions. And those 2 picks were egregious mistakes and decisions that can't happen for a quarterback who you're paying $200 million to, who has an average annual value north of $50 million, who's in year 5. Again, I'm not excusing that, but it was Week 1. Eagles did not play their offensive starters at all in the preseason. They had to shake off a little bit of that rust, and that was apparent for Hurts, even though that latter interception came later in the game in a critical juncture when it just simply can't happen when Hurts threw across his body, across the field, and got picked off in the end zone. But some of the positives here as we move forward in the infancy of the 2024 campaign. I was looking to see how Jalen Hurts would fare against pressure and against the blitz. Now, the Green Bay Packers didn't send a ton of blitz packages toward Hurts' direction, but when they did, he was really good. 6 of 8, 91 yards per attempt at 11.4, and he threw a touchdown. And what was noticeable to me when Hurts faced pressure is that Kellen Moore and the Eagles had a plan against the blitz. There were play calling and play design answers against the blitz, and they looked prepared against the blitz. Last year under Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni's system, they didn't have a plan. They were not prepared. They had no answers. There were no safety valves. There were no hot routes. There were no checks. There was no pre-snap motion pretty much. There were hardly crossers over the middle of the field. But Jalen Hurts in this game had control at the line of scrimmage, and he knew where the blitz was coming from and where he had to go with the football, as evidenced by those numbers. You're not convinced? Well, let's flip the page and take a look at the highest passer rating for all quarterbacks in Week 1 against the blitz going into Monday Night Football between the Niners and the Jets. Jalen Hurts, Sam Darnold, tied for first, 158.3. Perfect. Baker Mayfield, he threw 4 touchdowns against Washington, 152.6. Josh Allen against the Cardinals, 143.1, and then C.J. Stroud, 136.6 for the Houston Texans in their victory against the Indianapolis Colts. So that's the blitz aspect of how Kellen Moore helped unlock and unleash this Eagles offense. It looked like a different game from what we were seeing last year. How about pre-snap motion? We talked about this all throughout the offseason, how Philadelphia was 32nd in pre-snap motion rate a year ago. Well, Kellen Moore used motion at a 66% clip. That is the Eagles' highest mark since 2020, well above their 35% rate from 2023. So Kellen Moore nearly doubled that in game one against Green Bay. And Hurtt, with pre-snap motion, performed very well. He was 15 of 21, 212 yards, 10.1 yards per attempt. Both of his throwing touchdowns came on plays with pre-snap motion, and without it, he hardly had it last year. He struggled. It's almost like you want to put your players in a position to succeed, and that's what good coaches do. Hurtt without the pre-snap motion, 5 of 13, 66 yards, 5.1 yards per attempt, slashed in half there, and he threw his 2 interceptions on plays without any pre-snap motion. So in turn, I thought Hurtt still made some bad decisions, but these are good signs for how Kellen Moore can help elevate his quarterback. He did it with Dak Prescott, hardly had a chance to do it last year with Justin Herbert because he was injured. But these are the types of things that you look for and the adjustments and the changes that you look for when you're introducing a new offensive system and you want your quarterback to be able to implement those types of things. More notes for Kellen Moore. You see what I did there? Yeah, pretty creative, I might add. The Saquon Barkley touchdown throw from Jalen Hurts. It was a great play where there was some pre-snap motion, Jahan Dotson in motion from left to right, and then Hurts kind of drifted right, far side, and then threw it near side to Saquon on kind of that wheel route there, and he just dropped it right in the bucket. He found a keyhole with that throw. The A.J. Brown touchdown. Kellen Moore was able to influence the safeties a little bit because he had A.J. Brown slightly go in motion on a little flare motion from left to right, and then A.J. Brown was able to cook Jair Alexander and then took it to the crib in a foot race, 67 yards. He isolated and motioned Devontae Smith a lot. And we talked about that during the pregame show, how Devontae Smith is the perfect player for that, and him and A.J. Brown just complement each other really well. This Eagles offensive line, as the game progressed and wore on, I thought they got stronger. They looked conditioned. They looked physical. They looked every bit of the top 5 offensive line that they were last year. Cam Jurgens, early returns, pretty damn good. Mekhi Becton at a brand new position, really impressive. And then you know what you're going to get most of the time from Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, and Lane Johnson. And then the game-winning drive. Just a spectacular, put your nuts on the table, big boy type of drive for Philadelphia to win that game. And they dominated the Green Bay Packers on that drive. 16 plays, nearly 70 yards, and they were able to eat 7:25 off the clock. They had a couple of opportune runs and passes during that drive as well. That's what won Philadelphia the ball game. So before we continue to move forward on today's show, if you're pumped up that the Eagles are 1-0, I want you to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. Don't be a fraud. Hit that thumbs up icon right now. Coming up just around the corner, we are going to do a whip around the NFC East. Yesterday was a rare Sunday off for me, even though I still did a couple of videos from the at-home studio, slight flex, and I was able to watch a lot of the NFL games around the schedule. So just some observations that I have from the Commanders, Giants, and Cowboys games yesterday. First, shout out our sponsor, Roan, for making Eagles Now possible. Really appreciate their partnership here on the channel under the Chat Sports umbrella. If you're looking for menswear that will allow you to look good, feel good, that gives you versatility within your wardrobe where you can wear these clothing items out at a bar, if you're working in a cubicle, at home, if you're on camera like me, you're hitting the golf course quite frequently, Roan is your answer. Flexible, stretchable fabric that's high quality, and it's not going to wear down after a couple of wears. It really fits you well. I love this commuter shirt that I'm wearing right now. It's not too long, but I can still tuck it in if I need to. I can wear it like this, under a suit, with something separately. It's also really comfortable. And when I talk about the stretchable fabric, I mean, that's absolutely awesome. And the more that you wear these products, they have wrinkle release technology. So if you're just looking to spice up your wardrobe with some high quality menswear, we're talking button ups like this, polos. I love their shorts and their pants, all the same fabric and similar fabrics. Head to roan.com/chatsports. Get 20% off your order. I'll tell you what, the Birds against the Packers in Brazil, looking fresh with that uniform combination. Their kits, black helmets, black pants, white shirt. We're looking fresh with Roan. Get on board, 20% off using the promo code ChatSports. All right, to round out the show, just to look around the NFC East to see how the other teams fared. And I want to start with Cowboys Browns. Dallas able to go on the road in Cleveland and come away with a 33-17 win. They really controlled that game from the start to the finish. Dak Prescott didn't really do all too much, honestly, because the offensive unit didn't need to. And this coming after the Cowboys made Dak Prescott the richest player in the history of the NFL, the first player ever who is going to earn $60 million per year. 19 of 32, $179, a touchdown, no picks. Ezekiel Elliott had a touchdown close to the goal line. That's pretty much going to be his role because he's lost some of that speed. CD Lamb coming off of his contract, 5 grabs, 61 yards. The Cleveland Browns offense, though, let's talk about that. And it also has to do with the defensive play from this Dallas defense, which did lose their defensive coordinator in Dan Quinn, who is now the head coach of the Washington Commanders. But they didn't seem to lose a step against an offensive coach in Kevin Stefanski, who I like. But Deshaun Watson has clearly just lost it overnight. He has been horrendous since that trade from Houston to Cleveland. Some people are talking about how he died on that massage table. He hasn't been the same player since that final year with the Houston Texans. Now, I thought that Cowboys defense was last year legit, is this year legit. Micah Parsons was balling out. They seem to be pretty sound at all 3 levels. That's without Deron Bland. And that Browns offense, they had a bunch of pre-snap penalties. The offensive line was not good at all. Deshaun Watson was sacked 6 times. Not all of them were on him. But one of the 4th down plays late, in which he rolled out, he took a sack on that play. It just can't happen for a veteran. Cleveland was a mess. Now, we'll see what happens with this Cowboys offense. Pretty interesting game coming up in week 2. Dallas, New Orleans. New Orleans able to dump truck a horrible Panthers team. 265 yards. We talk about the numbers for Dak. They did run it for more than 100 yards. Didn't turn the football over at all. And then time of possession, 29 minutes, 6 seconds. And with Dak Prescott coming off that deal, you were thinking maybe he was going to be able to pop off again. This game was just dictated by this Cowboys defense, which was swarming throughout the duration of the afternoon. He did target CD Lamb a lot. CD Lamb was held in check by defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz. He kind of started to shield a couple of defenders over his way because he wasn't going to let CD Lamb beat them on those one-on-ones. And then Deshaun Watson. It's incredible to watch the downfall of him. His last year with the Houston Texans, I know they went 4-12, but he was a borderline top 5 quarterback that year. And the scandal happens. The Browns give him all that guaranteed money. His cap hit the next 2 years is like $72.9 million in 2025, 2026. If this continues, I mean, it's going to go down as probably the worst contract in the history of the National Football League. He completed 53% of his passes. The long balls were off. He wasn't throwing with any accuracy to all 3 levels. I mean, it was really, really hard to watch. And Cleveland could barely muster to move the football. 230 yards in total, 3.3 yards per play, and they're missing Nick Chubb. It's a staple of their offense. So we'll see what happens when they get Nick Chubb back. But the time is ticking for Deshaun Watson, and Jameis Winston is their backup. Wouldn't surprise me if we see him sooner rather than later. To Vikings-Giants now. An impressive win for Minnesota, week 1 on the road, MetLife Stadium. For the Giants, it was so bad that fans were leaving MetLife Stadium in the Meadowlands in the 3rd quarter. And then fans waited for Daniel Jones to leave the stadium, and fans were mocking him, saying, Dan, I need $1 million. Well, we're talking about a $40 million per year quarterback who is awful. And that Giants offense, their team in general, did not look prepared. They were poorly coached, so they got out-coached, out-executed, outplayed. Daniel Jones, he completed 52% of his passes against Minnesota. And I like Brian Flores as a defensive coordinator. No touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And how about these numbers? Daniel Jones in his last 8 games, he has thrown more pick sixes to the other team than he's thrown touchdown passes to his own team. So a touchdown interception ratio of 2-9 in his last 8 games, 3 pick sixes and 5 fumbles. The whole Giants regime, in my eyes, is on the hot seat. Owner John Mara cannot be happy with what he's seeing from Brian Dable. Kevin O'Connell was doing laps around him, or Joe Shane, who's blown a couple of really important draft picks. He gave Daniel Jones the bag, and they let Saquon Barkley go to a division rival in the Philadelphia Eagles. And I can't help but turn it back to what we heard and what we saw on Hard Knocks. Joe Shane was hesitant in paying Saquon Barkley. John Mara, the Giants owner, said, I don't know if I'll be able to sleep if Saquon goes to Philadelphia. Do you think he's slept since Saquon went off for a hat trick and looked as explosive as ever on Friday night against Brazil, or in Brazil, excuse me? The Giants on the hot seat, that building temperature, it's on the uptick. Yeah, we let Saquon Barkley go. Thank you, New York Giants, for your services. And then lastly, Commanders, Buccaneers. I wasn't expecting Washington to go on the road and win this game. I did think they were going to be a little bit more competitive, and I do think that Washington's going to be able to improve as the season goes on. I was excited to watch Jaden Daniels, and we could flip the page to his numbers. Didn't really get to do much. He is going to be a threat with his legs. He's certainly dynamic there. The offensive line's still a little bit spotty. They do have some playmakers here and there, but Washington really just dominated by Tampa Bay. And how about Baker Mayfield? I mean, last year with Dave Canales, who's now the Panthers head coach, he was their OC, and he really did a great job of maximizing Baker toward the end of the year, really started to regain his confidence, and with that, he played really well. The Buccaneers nearly went on the road and took down the Detroit Lions in the NFC divisional round. Baker Mayfield yesterday was slinging that thing. 80% completion percentage, a couple of long balls. He was accurate, he was decisive, and the normal Baker Mayfield swagger. 4 touchdowns, no picks for him. That offense, with how it played, with Liam Cohen, who's now their new offensive coordinator, and with how good that defense is, led by Todd Bowles, which gave the Eagles offense, a lot of trouble in that wild card round. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they look to be a solid team in the NFC. Before we hop on out of here, be sure to give me a follow on social media. I'm on X at Chase_Senior. Same handle on Instagram at Chase_Senior. In addition to the long-form content that I do right here on YouTube, I put out a lot of short-form content, thoughts, instant reaction videos pertaining to the Eagles on my social media pages. So give me a follow there, say what's up, and thanks for watching today's show.